Welcome into the Sheep Shed, a podcast of Good Shepherd Community Church. Here in the Sheep Shed, we're all about creating a space to learn how to live like Jesus and reaching the world with his love. We are your hosts, Z Farrogue and
Trevor Winsor. Z, I feel like people know you, okay? They've seen you up there slapping the bass on Sundays. They know you and your family pretty well. They don't know me quite as well, but just for people who maybe don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to people who might not know?
My name is Z Farrogue. I am the husband of Shannon. We have 5 kids. I have a 5-year-old, 8, 6, 4, 2, and 3 months now. Elijah, yeah. Did I get it? It's 5 kids total.
I mean, I lost track too.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out. I think I got all their ages in there. But yeah, we live out in Troutdale, Oregon. I've been attending Good Shepherd now for just over a decade, which is crazy to think about. Basically, since I became a believer.
Yeah.
I came to faith as an adult in my mid-20s. And I started working here about 5 years ago, and I've loved every minute of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, who am I? I am Trevor Winsor, the husband of Amy, to use yours. We have 2 sons, Brady and Brooks, 7 and 4. And I've been a Good Shepherd. We've been here for 7 years now, a little over 7 years. And yeah, my wife is a mom-to-mom coordinator right now. I'm helping out as a growth group shepherd. Been leading growth groups here for, I want to say 5 years now, nice. I think. Not on staff. I'm in a volunteer capacity, which I'm excited about either way. So yeah, and because it was one of the things we were thinking about when we were putting this episode together. It's like, people know you, they know your face, they might not know me.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, we'll get into it with this episode, but you birthed this podcast. This is a 2.0, kind of a relaunching, but you birthed this thing in 2023. And you and I have had a lot of conversations. I've been in the podcast space for about 7 years, and ran my own show, hosted my own show as a part of a ministry here. Not my own show, but ran our show. And I just had this thought one day, like, hey, what's going on with the Sheep Shed? Like, let's talk about it. And you graciously asked me to be a part, and so I did not force my way in.
Yeah, no, not at all.
This was a thing that I feel like the Lord brought us together, and we get to unpack that a little bit today, and let's just get into it. We don't need to riff anymore. You're just going to hear a lot from us. Let's get into the episode. Z and I are just talking about really this relaunch of the Sheep Shed, and we're excited to welcome you into it. All right, Z, let's give people the background, okay?
Yep.
Let's talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and honestly, why on earth they should listen to us, because who are we? Let's start with, and honestly, I view it a little bit as someone who's been in the podcast space before and going to Good Shepherd for 7 years. Feels a little bit like an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
In many ways, this is a 2.0 launch of the Sheep Shed.
Yep.
We originally launched this podcast in 2023, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And it sort of fizzled out. And honestly, let's just put it out there. Why are we reviving this thing? And will it be different than the original vision that we had behind it?
I mean, the motivation behind starting the podcast in the first place in 2023 was because I've been on staff here for almost 5 years now. And one of the things, it's been great. One of the things I love is staff lunch, and just I love everyone I work with, but just that time we get together. We have an hour where we get to share a meal. A lot of times we're praying together, or there's some kind of teaching or coaching or celebration that we're celebrating. The bond that we get, that mutual encouragement for each other has been something that I think I always felt like would be a good addition for people who call Good Shepherd home, who come here on the weekends, who don't necessarily have any other touch points between the week. People nowadays, I know everyone does have a podcast, but it's a very easily consumed form of media.
It is. Yes.
People travel, whether they're commuting or doing yard work or washing the dishes. You could be listening to something too, consuming something that way. So it was born out of a desire to try to create that more of a family feel. Try to make Good Shepherd, which is a lot of people attend Good Shepherd, try to make it feel a little smaller, a little more intimate. Yeah. But towards the fall of 2023, I ended up having to take a few months off work. My wife got injured. Yeah. And that definitely threw a wrench in the whole production thing. Yep. And actually had been praying about it because even though it hadn't sort of fizzled out, the desire for this was still always there. It hadn't faded. So been praying for some kind of some way to get back in, and then Trevor reach out,
that's right,
and say, "Hey, about that Sheep Shed podcast,
that's right.
I wonder if we could revive this thing." Yeah. And I told you when you reached out, I was like, "This is an answer to prayer. Cool. This is something I've been hoping for." Yeah. So it was perfect timing. I think now, to answer your question about, obviously it's going to be improved. We have Trevor now helping us out.
Thank you.
Overall, I think the overall mission is still the same. Yeah. We have now this video element that
you're so excited about.
Yeah, I'm very pumped about. I love being on video. But we're the purpose of this podcast is for our people, our Good Shepherd family. But then also, I think, because we're going to be talking about the issues that are pressing right now across the country, across the world, I think it may be helpful to other believers too, and be shareable. Yeah. Yeah. So with so many podcasts out there today, because people always say, why would we start one now? Why is this format? Why is this a format to explore as a church body even?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's one of those things where, in some of my background, I was part of a local nonprofit and got to run and host a podcast for 7 years. So for me, I love the medium, but it's something that you already said it in your answer to the first question, was just it's a really consumable platform and medium where, the average commute is probably 25 minutes. And so a lot of people shoot for podcasts that people can listen to, it can consume. It's funny, and if I get some hate for this, it's totally fine, but my wife and I love the show Survivor, CBS, Jeff Probst, they're on season 47 right now.
No.
And they just started a podcast, I think after season 45, where they have, basically they're deep diving into the episodes from like a producer standpoint and a gameplay perspective and all this stuff. But to me, it basically shows me the layers that are involved in this product I like. Yeah. There's a lot of layers to the inner workings of a church, what is talked about and taught from the stage, worship, the ministry, like so much of it. And this gives us an opportunity to really sit down and have conversations that we don't have time for from the stage. Yeah. And this is why we had, the next episode, we have a conversation with Pastor Greg where we're talking about one of his messages where he opened up this kind of political can of worms in a really good way, but opened it at the end of the message. And we thought, that's something we should talk about. He didn't have another 45 minutes after preaching for 40 minutes to go into it. And so it's like, well, that creates an opportunity here for us to maybe unpack that. Yeah. And I would say from my vantage point, my hope is that this podcast is something where people can listen to it and have like applicable, actionable things they can start implementing into their life on how to be a better follower of Jesus, how to be a better spouse, parent, all that stuff. Yeah. But we really want to be like walking alongside people. Exactly. And I think the podcast gives that, again, that medium it reaches people in that way. And I would say the video thing, just to kind of put you on the spot, we've talked about this, YouTube's the second largest search engine in the world behind Google. And so the fact that we can put these videos up too, just makes sharing this content that much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that.
Okay. So as we were putting together this first episode, one of the thoughts I think we both had were maybe this question that some listeners might have. Is this just going to be an extension of the sermon? Like, is this just basically we're listening to the sermon on Sunday, and then when we release midweek, it's just sermon 2.0, basically we're building on it. Is that the case, or?
No. This isn't, the messages are great, and there's definitely going to be times where we're going to want to, like our second episode with Greg, where we want to just unpack some of the stuff a little more, or get clarity on some pieces, or just learn about, like we do on the second episode, learning about practical practical application for that message. But the overall goal is not to make this an extension of the pulpit. Right. We want to be able to actually platform to share testimonies of other people. And
people
like you
who
said,
work here and people just a part of our church,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. People, both staff, church members, community members, people who are serving in local ministries that we as a church body support. Yeah. Like you said, though, like the purpose, we're not coming along. We are coming alongside. Right. You know, we are learning also. We're learning together.
We're not the lead pastors of this church.
Exactly. Yeah. We're not guiding anyone. We are walking with and learning along with everyone. So we want. I mean, obviously, biblically centered is the content, but we want our curiosity, the Holy Spirit's curiosity within us, to guide these conversations. And really, I think it'll help. Overall, I want that mutual encouragement that we're called to as believers. Yeah. So what can we expect now with, because like I said, I feel like it's I don't think it's an understatement to say that you helping out with this podcast is a huge gift. Just your institutional knowledge of production and all that stuff. What now with your added skill set as a bonus? What can we expect from the Sheep Shed, and how often are we going to be posting content? Yeah. What are we talking about each week?
I mean, the reality is I'm going to say this, and then we're going to hold ourselves accountable to it. Yeah. But I mean, the point is that we'll be posting content every single week, and honestly, what we'll be talking about, again, kind of going back to what our hope is for this, is that it's going to be like, we live in a crazy world that has a lot of different things going on. And, it could be from political stuff to gender stuff to, perspective on, you were talking about it earlier, the idea of, how they're teaching sexuality in schools. Yeah. And I want to talk about marriage and sexuality here. I want to talk about what it looks like to love your spouse for your entire life. I want to talk about divorce. I want to talk about all the elements and aspects of being a human being. Yeah. And make it really accessible. Yeah. So we're going to post content every single week, both video and audio. I'm just making sure Z heard that, but because you're the one who's going to be editing this. I do have a lot of experience in production, but not in the editing part. So yeah, it's great. I've got the easy job, right? Right. But that's the whole point, is that we want it to be something that's consistent. And I would also say our hope is that it's another engagement point during the week. Like, we're hoping to release these midweek so that you're getting your time with the church, hearing from God's word, worshiping together, getting fellowship on Saturday or Sunday, and then also getting a touch point midweek where we're hoping that it brings about more connection from our church body throughout the week.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So let's end with this then. And I want you to remember the conversation we had. We first sat down, and your heart for the podcast, and not just for people in our church, but what you were hoping people in our church could use this podcast for. Just what are your hopes? I mean, you're the one who kind of birthed this idea, in 2023. And like, what do you want people walking away with, knowing that, like, the heart of our show?
Well, yeah, I don't know how far back to go, but I mean, or how much to reveal about the motivation, but like, my heart behind it, selfishly at first, a big part of the motivation was the ability to, there's certain people, friends and family members that I have in my life that aren't believers, or maybe on the fence, or have walked away from the faith, that I feel like could benefit from hearing certain people's stories, maybe not necessarily from me or secondhand, but hearing it from them. So selfishly, there's a handful of testimonies that I wanted to capture to be able to share with family members and say, hey, I did this. There's an interview where this guy shared, or this lady shared about this topic that maybe I don't want to necessarily broach and talk about face to face, or maybe it's a sore point for us. But I think it's a nice soft entry into a possibly and hopefully a broader biblical conversation. I really want people to. I want to encourage our body through sharing of testimonies. Conducting a lot of these interviews. I mean, in the moment, I'm encouraged. So there's no way. I know that other people will feel the same way. Right. And I just, like I said, it's just that if we call ourselves family, let's act like family and keep in contact, keep in touch, and know. There's that saying, to know me is to love me, and we want to know everyone around here, staff, our body members. And be encouraged by what God's doing in their lives.
Yeah. The word that comes to mind is it's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool we can use to reach people. And honestly, I've already started praying that we get more people attending our church because someone shared an episode from this and they meet Christ and they decide, I want to check this place out and I want to see what they're doing there. And our heart is that this would grow the church both internally and externally as we do that.
Amen.
And I'll just say this too, like I appreciate you letting me in, to the kitchen, so to speak. Like this was your.
I guess we could let the
this
pro.
This was your
in.
baby. You keep calling me a pro. Let's let the people decide on their own if I am. But I just appreciate you being willing to let me come in and co-pilot this thing with you. And man, I'm really excited about what we're gonna do.
I'm probably even more excited because you're helping just add fuel to this. Cool. But it is like you said. That's a great word. It's a tool to help equip our people, or myself and everyone listening and watching.
Yep. All right, so that's it for our time in the sheep shed this week. Thanks for joining us as we're learning to live like Jesus and reaching the world with his love. We are a new podcast, which means you should subscribe, write us a review, share the content with somebody. And I would say yes, even to someone outside of our church. It's really, really helpful. I want to encourage the Big C Church too. With that, we will see you next week here in the sheep shed.